So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the next second webinar of TOSB and Arka Leadership, Leaders Connect. I welcome Naina Lal Kidwai with us today, but before that, I would like to give a very quick brief introduction to who and what is Leaders Connect and how has this taken birth. Arka Leadership is a movement to inspire people to live with authenticity. Having traveled through a journey of transformation and recognizing that our perceptions, our identifications, our attachments to just so many other beliefs than ourselves inhibit from living our true self or really tapping into our true self and being our true self. Leaders Connect is really about bringing stories of those leaders who have lived with their self-belief and their true self and expressed it to their fullest and been successful in the sphere of life. So Arka Leadership is in collaboration, has collaborated with many like-minded leaders and coaches across the world to put this movement forward. And I'm really grateful to Kriti Makija of TOSB, who's taken this partnership with TOSB for us and helped us connect to the speakers of TOSB. TOSB is an online platform with leading experts offering cutting-edge perspectives and learning from their fields. The platform partners with global speakers and experts to facilitate conversation on pressing concerns and possibilities on topical issues. Leaders Connect is an opportunity for us to bring conversations with leaders forward in the most inspiring leaders from different walks of life and having dialogues on how can one really empower and inspire and harness potential. In each session, we seek to deep dive into that all-important quality that help these leaders be transformational and successful. The series aims to build a dialogue around qualities such as authenticity, emotional intelligence, inclusion, trust, courage, and many more. Our outreach partners are Ascent. Ascent is a not-for-profit expression of Harsh Marivara and his passion to identify high potential growth stage entrepreneurs. Our other second partners are community partners are NASSCOM Insights. NASSCOM Insight is the research division of NASSCOM, a not-for-profit association of Indian IT and BPO companies. The platform discusses latest technologies and impact of policies and changing markets, trends, interviews industry leaders, and so on to re-enable members to work in a collaborative manner, especially in the tech sector. Our community partners, also another one, Shiro's, a women's platform, designed to make women feel safe and trusted and discuss issues relating to health, career, love, share, and stories and achievements. Now, I would love to introduce none other and who really doesn't need much introduction, Naina Lal Kidwai, a well-known leader who has successfully broken the glass ceiling in so many dimensions. There are so many firsts to her credits. I think even the list runs short here. The first woman MBA from Harvard Business School, the first woman to head the private sector foreign bank in India, the first woman to be elected as president of India's leading National Industry Association, FICCI. She brings her experience and wisdom in many corporate world to her sessions and speaks on, as she told me, she's spoken on sanitation, she's spoken on, issues which on economy. She's very, very versatile and well versed in issues of wide ranging issues between finance, economy, sanitation, and issues that are close to her heart, as well as women leadership. Over Naina's professional journey, she has led Morgan Stanley, has been an executive director on HSBC Asia Pacific and chairman of HSBC India as well, chairman advisory board of Advent, and I think I can just keep reading on the number of organizations, Lafarge Holcim, Nestle, Max Financial Services, Cipla, and so on. Repeatedly listed as amongst the most powerful women in business and recipient of several awards, including the Padma Shri for her contribution to trade and industry. We couldn't have been more privileged to have Naina with us today. She has also, with all her busy schedule, taken time to author 2 books and put her wisdom together in 30 Women Empower Their Voices and Stories and Survive or Sink, an action agenda for sanitation, water pollution, and green finance. So over to you, Naina. I think we need to take a pause and really get into the conversation here. I could go on about you. Uh, Looking at where you are today from your space of all the learnings that you come with, what entrepreneurs and leaders are grappling most with is how to handle the leadership in crisis today and how to thrive rather than just survive. What are some words of wisdom that you could share with for us here?
Yeah. So, Ashu, let me just start by thanking you for that very generous introduction, and congratulations to you for all the books you've written on very important subjects to do with empowerment. Uh, I'm also delighted to do this on a platform with the Outstanding Speakers Bureau, TOSB, who actually handle my speaking engagements for me, which is always a tough one to juggle. But here I am, and on the topic that you have asked me to comment on, I think we are in very unusual times. And for all of us, whether leaders or employees or individuals coping in today's world, we are finding our way. And in fact, I was listening into an interview of some of the global leaders in the tech sector, the Satya Nadellas, etc., of the world. And that was their take too on these times, that we don't yet have the answers, and the answers are unfolding even as we move. So, in times of such unusual change and continuous change, what is it about our leadership style or us as individuals that helps us stay on course, that anchors us, that helps us weather this time? And there's a Harvard Business School conversation, which I was a part of, where if you think of the traits that get mentioned through that conversation, resilience. So, resilience is the ability to just stay the course, come back with strength, ensure that that self belief, the ability to reach into one's inner resources, enables one to just be there and not fall down and fall away. Agility. Agility is the ability to change oneself, to be able to therefore adapt and adopt new situations. And let's face it, many of us did that in the whole work from home culture. It's not been easy for all. It's been, for people like me, actually a big benefit, because I must say I'm very delighted that I'm not burning all that carbon footprint that I was contributing to flying around the place. But at the end of the day, we all had to adapt to a whole new work environment. The third aspect, so it's resilience, agility. I think the third aspect has just been a decentralized management. Over time, many of us in companies have got more and more centralized. And in fact, technology drove that centralization. It was easy to take decisions at the center and then disseminate it as technology requires. In the good old days, you didn't have that technology. So actually, there was much more empowerment down at the branch level in a bank. Or indeed, I was talking with a friend at the IAS, and he was saying the same thing, that the decisions today are so centralized that the empowerment that you had down at the district magistrate level to take decisions in a very local level, which you had to in the old environment because you didn't even have a phone connection back to, you had to use a wireless system, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't, through the police's wireless system to get back to head office. You took decisions in a very empowered way, which was very local and maybe far better suited to that local environment than we have today. So the decentralized management pushes power back to the edges is quite important in this environment. And I think good, because it allows all of us to, again, think for ourselves and make the decisions in a way that help the organization, help the people around us, are far more connected with our teams, to do it with a sense of compassion and love and care and understanding the local issues and indeed problems as they exist. Uh, Generally, on this point of empowerment and pushing it closer to sort of the local environment, I was really reminded of the time when we had floods in Bombay. Now, we keep having floods in Bombay, but the
Yeah.
big floods which
July
actually
20.
correct. And it brought the entire power system of the city to a halt, as a result of which the telecom towers died. And we lost complete connection with our branch network. We had no way of guiding our branch managers and people who were stuck in the branches as the floods were rising, whether, to guide them, should they stay, should they go home, what should they do with office equipment, etc. And some of them spent overnight in pitch darkness, sitting on tables, just watching the water rise, and dependent only on their own abilities to survive, because there was no one there for the love of money or connection or anything for us to be able to tell them what to do. And the good news is, every one of them came through with flying colors. So, with the right training, the right education, the right empathy, the right desire to lead their teams and do the right thing by their people, each of our teams, each of our people took the right decision. And you see this as a repeat story. There are great examples, and it's a Harvard Business School case of what happened at the Taj Hotel at the time of the terrorist attacks, and how
Correct.
staff responded there. Uh, and each of the decisions taken by young people under the age of 30, empathetic, doing the right thing, putting others before themselves, are all great examples on how, if you have the right people around you with the right value systems and the right empathy and compassion, the decisions turn out right, giving them the empowerment to take that decision and backing them for that decision. It may be a decision that goes wrong, but it was taken in the right spirit, and you still have to back them. So, a long answer to your question, but I think really that's where I come in: resilience, agility, decentralized management, and enabling the empowerment at the individual level.
No, thank you. Very, very relevant answers and very relevant traits which you mentioned. And what stands out among in all of that is the right training and empathy, or to do the right thing. It's really about, because in a very large organization, like you talked about, how things at the branch level have to be at some point let go. And where it brings me to is this letting go. There are leaders who feel empowered. I mean, any empowerment starts at the leadership level, because it's only from self empowerment can the empowerment really trickle down. I have seen leaders who often hesitate or are holding on to that need to be in power, need to be in control, the one taking decisions and everything. How do you think, what is it that leaders could really do to firstly be empowered themselves and then pass that down? Or I'll put differently, what could be holding them back from feeling empowered?
So I think there are two things. One is you I would tend not to pass on that leadership down to the decision-making levels, which I firmly believe in, because you don't trust the team or the people around you. And that, I think, is a fundamental weakness both of the leader and possibly of the team. So it's very important that that trust and faith in the ability and the quality of the team is established. As a leader, I can learn as much, if not more, from my team, because I'm not an expert in everything. In fact, I'm an expert in very, very few things. And if I have the right team around me, I should be listening to what they have to say. They should be teaching me and guiding me. And that comes to the whole issue of team. How do you look at your team the faith you have in your team, the trust you have in your team, and your own. If you believe there are gaps, then as a leader you fail that team if you haven't given them a chance to upskill themselves as well. And that's about the training programs and the continuous learning that an organization must provide, that a leader must provide, and the guidance that a leader must provide its person. And when I talk of guidance, sometimes I'd be horrified about how lightly a review meeting was taken by a boss with their subordinate. And the weaker the subordinate and the more guidance the subordinate needed, because there were tough messages to be given, the leader was more likely to brush it over. Whereas the right thing to do is to enable that individual, particularly younger people coming through the system, to give them that frank input. Do it in a gentle way, do it in a positive way, do it with guidance from trained HR people if you would feel that it is a very tough message. But anchor them in a way that helps them improve. And I have been so gratified to see how quickly people change. Sometimes they're angry when and they fight back to say, no, you have it wrong. But most times they take the feedback. And in any case, if you can give them the right coach, the right mentors, the right support, or change the role, if they are a square peg in a round hole, to enable them to move on playing to their strengths. And, they come back to thank you. Many of them have risen to great positions in these organizations. And I think that guidance, that mentoring becomes so important at every stage of one's career, because we can all go wrong somewhere. And there's no point having someone hold it against you and not tell you, so that you can't amend and change what was an issue to start with. So I think it's about team. It's also about collaboration. Because as a team, you only work if you recognize that you have to collaborate and work together. And I think that is a feature in today's world, which is very important, again, for us to recognize that we all need each other and we're
Yeah.
only as strong as the team that we represent.
The very powerful messages of we are only as strong as the team we represent. And, can I for a moment digress to ask, you must have had moments of what is the right thing to do? How do I do this? How do I empower the team? Who have been some of your influencing mentors?
Yeah. Well, there are two questions there. So one is always in situations where you question yourself on, what is the right answer. In the working world, one is thrown in the deep end all the time. Uh,
So
I
it's
can
not just sometimes, it's all the time.
all the time, the problem will hit you when you least expect it. I mean, coming back to the same terrorist attacks in the Bombay hotels, and I
Yeah.
was CEO of HSBC at the time, and we had 32 people stuck in the two hotels, the Oberoi and the Taj. And now I'm sitting there as CEO. I've never been in a situation like this before. People are looking to me to take decisions which I'm absolutely incapable of understanding and taking, because heavens, do you tell someone to run out of a room or stay there? It's a question of life and death, and in a space which I am not equipped to make those answers, right? So you do the best you can, you stretch yourself. I reached out to every connection I had in the police so that we could get the right advice as to what to do. Our own security team sitting around the world, guiding, advising. And ultimately, we 24-hour vigils, call centers operating, so that anyone who called in, particularly for those who were locked into these rooms, that they always had a hand keeping a connection going with them every hour. But we were just thinking on our feet, and we was a team which I assembled from the group around me, and some of the expertise that was available to us from outside, guiding us. And so it wasn't me leading, it was a team effort where the best advice we could get in the circumstances was provided to us. And thankfully, as a result, we got every one of our employees out. And God alone knows that it gave one, you know, a lot of sleepless nights, because it was 3 days and nights
Yeah.
before we knew that everyone was safe. So, what does one need in situations like this? And it is only, quite honestly, about common sense, about, again, the ability to understand what you are not capable of doing yourself and you need others to come in, and enabling that best decision. Sometimes everybody's just looking to you to take that decision, so you have to be courageous and take that decision and move on, in the hope that it is indeed the right one, and admit when you're wrong and change it too, not just stand on your ego. So I think when you talk about, what is it that influenced me and mentors and others, I think we all grow up with those mentors around us. For me, it was very much, as I'm sure it is for you and for many of us, our parents. My father was a huge influence in my life. He worked in a professional category. He was CEO of an insurance company. And that gave me a wonderful insight into the world I was going to enter, the financial sector and the corporate sector. And he was a great fallback to me because he always understood the issues that I went back to him for. So I was very fortunate to have in house one of the most amazing and trusted individuals who was actually a mentor to many, many people, but was certainly my most favorite mentor. But you pick up mentors all through your
Yeah.
career. And so I was fortunate that I had bosses who were fantastic mentors. They were great because of the faith they put in me. There were times when I went back and said, "Hey, I'm not sure I can do this." And they would say, "Well, here's a way that you could, and just go back and try. And, if it doesn't work out, we're with you." So that empowerment becomes important. The fact that you may fail, you could take a wrong turn and decision, you do it with some consultation, you do it in the best interest of the company, but you also, as a company, need to be able to support that decision, where failing is a given at many stages in your career. But you need an organization and an inner strength that enables yourself to be picked up and start again. I think it was Steve Jobs who said, "You fail forward, or you fall forward."
Forward.
And so, and Apple made a lot of mistakes along the way, but you fall in a way that you move forward as well, because it teaches you what didn't work so that you can write it with a view to correcting as you go forward. Um, I've had mentors in people like my executive assistant over the bomb blasts in Bombay, who, when trains weren't working and offices were not even open, I was going in because I was heading at that time, the retail branches in Western India in fact, for Grindlays Bank. And I see my assistant come in, and I'm like, "What the hell are you doing here?" There were instructions to everyone, "You should not be risking yourselves coming in at all." And she was taking public transport otherwise to come. And she said, "I knew you'd be here and that you might need me." And she left a young child at home with her neighbor to come in. And when you came into these environments, you were never sure how you were going to get back, because you didn't know where the next bit of problem was going to arise. Uh, and to me, that was a lesson. It was like, who am I to even think twice about coming in to lead my team in this effort when she has seen her role in this way? And the guidance you get is, my gosh, I mean, this is the nature of work and how people feel about what their responsibilities are. So every one of these becomes a lesson for the future and makes you question why your level isn't as high as that level which someone else has set themselves.
So thank you. I'm taking away many things out of your stories that you've shared, be it 2611, July downpour, and things, that failure is a given and it's a lesson to move forward. Any leader really needs the vulnerability and humility to reach out to experts and always look around for inspirations, be open to inspiration, and above all, pick mentors as they go along. It's not a, because it's no leader knows all the answers, and that's the humility one needs to live with. Because yes, and to even accept that you have to sometimes bite, you have to bite the bullet, take the decision, and live with it. So it is many things all rolled in one. And entrepreneurs today are, I hope they're taking all these messages with them, especially when many are struggling with a need for a toss up between, like one says, the stability and the profitability, and how to manage people, how to manage livelihood, how to keep lives safe. So it's the same struggle which you've seen through your times. Of course, this is a much more global struggle. Any other, you think, way that leaders can, you've talked about self empowerment, you've talked about self belief. Any one tip that they could do differently that leaders may not be doing today to really feel okay with this whole pandemic and the economic crisis? It's not just a health or other, it's an economic crisis one could go to through.
Yeah, so Ashu, you ask a great question because, for anyone managing through this crisis, of course, you have to look at the business continuity through technology, cash, liquidity, all of that. But the one thing which maybe in that whole chaos of managing, which we can forget, is the values and humanism that is required. That personal connect with one's team, but also the values that drive that, not just the connect, but the support that is required to be given, not just to the people who work with you, but to society at large. And I think one of the tragedies of this uh, time through the pandemic for us in India is also to be reminded of how little people have. The whole migrant situation was just so depressing. It was heartrending. And, anything one did appeared so small in terms of the scale of the issue. And it touched us in every way all around us, right? So, what has it changed? And I think what it does is it makes us think about how we might reinvent capitalism. We need to really repair the frayed relationship between society and business and the social problems which we as a company can take on or as an individual. It begs the question of what is it that we can do more and better. And I think this would be a lesson which should be well learned by all of us. So when we go back to and we're limping back to normalcy, we don't forget the role we play in society, the connect that we as an organization or as individuals have with the communities around us. And by the way, successful companies always had that connect. They built connections with the communities around them. I work in water and sanitation, and the India Sanitation Coalition, which I founded and chair, uh, has really been quite heartened to see how readily companies have picked up on this theme of delivery of water and sanitation to the communities around where their factories exist. So they took that ownership because they recognized that hygiene in and around their factory and workplace helped them. It was a win win. Their workers were drawn from that team. If there was illness in and around where the factory was, it came into the factory. And here they were able to ensure that best practices existed in the communities around and provision of the capital infrastructure. If toilets were needed or water pipes were required, provision of water, because water is a shared resource.
Lost Naina's
Ask,
voice. Yeah, sorry.
am I there?
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I was just saying that you don't want to have a disconnect with the communities and societies around you, and not just those that you serve, but those that serve you. And as a result, it becomes an important connect. And then you can widen it more and more in terms of what is now emerging as a very important criteria for companies to be evaluated against, which is ESG, environment, society,
Society
governance. Yeah,
governance.
these three very important pillars on which companies are being assessed and on the basis of which investors and finance are putting money into the company. So the good news is there's a more and more alignment around global expectation and doing the right thing in terms of being humane and connected with our people.
You know, you've made a very pertinent point here of reinventing capitalism to be very inclusive of society. And sorry, I'll just take a pause here to say, all participants, please share your questions in the chat box. I will be taking questions as we go along, and we will also take questions towards the end. So you're welcome to put your questions to me as we talk to Naina. Back to the conversation, Naina. So here, you know, you've made a very pertinent point about reinventing and the connection with society, and actually taking on that responsibility of empowering society and being a partner rather than thinking that the society owes to me. It's more about you owe to the society. One such vertical of society is very, I wouldn't say vertical, one is women. You as a woman leader have always very strongly to empower other women leaders, and you know you've stood for that all along, and just your story and your being there is an inspiring story for women. Anything that you, I mean, what would you say that women who often hesitate to break the glass ceiling, go through the discomfort of breaking societal, or you know, I wouldn't say breaking, or norms which they have in their heads, what could they do differently, think differently to actually rise to their potential?
You know, this is a big question, because, and it's one which actually women struggle with at every level. There is the whole issue of work-life balance, and the life part of it comes with the strictures society places on us. The need to be a dutiful wife, mother, you know, daughter-in-law, and by the time you finish with that long list of duties, you know, do you really have time left to work? And COVID and work from home has thrown this up. There are a couple of surveys which UN and FICCI had done, which have shown that women are having a tough time juggling kids at home because they're schooling them for obvious reasons from home, having to run kitchens and cook because staff was not permitted in because of COVID, husbands working from home, and all happening in small spaces. That, in fact, contrary to what I would have initially thought, that, you know, here's a blessing where you've got flexi hours and the ability to work from home, which is something I actually struggled to put into the organization as a bonus, actually can work against you as a woman in situations such as this. So for that, we need society to come forward and recognize that the work and job that the woman does is as important as the husband and others in there, and everybody needs to just make sure that they are helping and providing. I think this change will be a while in coming. I had seen an India Today survey which said that 70% of those interviewed believe women were good to be in the workplace, right?
Oh,
Yeah, so that's good. There was full
yeah,
support, so that's a
full
big change.
support. Yeah.
However, uh, I think it was like about the same percentage, 67%, that said that the woman needed that to be there to look after the children. So the dichotomy there is we don't have a problem if you work, provided you're doing everything else. And I
Yeah.
think that's that equation. So if you ask anyone, they'll say, yes, great, women in the workplace. We love the fact that she's going to work, earning for the family and, you know, what she brings back. And we totally recognize that our children benefit from the fact that she's well educated, etc. However, that has to be the thing that comes in at the end. And that's the society change which I think is very important for us to recognize. And the Western world is changing. Uh, we see the rules in organizations changing with paternity leave, and you see pictures in Scandinavia of husbands wheeling the kids' prams during weekdays because their wives are at work. We're still a distance from that, and I'm hoping that we can get there very, very soon. But I think it is going to require society changes in many ways. And for us as women, the work life balance issue as we cope with this, I mean, I always like to equate this with crystal balls. And I refer to this in my book as well in terms of the crystal ball, which is work. It's crystal, so you don't want it to fall down and shatter. So you have to keep it in the air, even while you keep your second crystal ball, which is your family, your home ball, in the air. So those two balls are very important to juggle. And the third ball is the me ball. And
Mm.
that I have treated more like a rubber ball. I have women who've come back to me and told me that for them, that too is a crystal ball. So each has to manage how you think best. I treat it as a rubber ball because I feel fine. I love music. I love doing certain things. Like, that my me time is something I can let drop. It is a rubber ball, so it won't break. It'll lie there till I pick it up again. And so that, I guess, I won't call it a sacrifice, but it is the thing that gives me the ability to juggle at least the two crystal balls that are important to me, which are the work and family balls.
Yeah, so I think it's really about prioritizing. But what if, here it reminds me of this very recent, actually, Supreme Court judgment, which said that women at home deserve equal, it's considered as equal pay. You're earning as much as your husband by virtue of being a homemaker. And I think it was one of the most empowering decisions that has been
Yeah.
announced, yeah, recently. The other thing I often hear women who are actually appear very strong, they find it the hardest to say no at home.
Yeah.
And I hope more of them sometimes learn to say the no and have more crystal balls in the air than just one crystal ball.
Ashu, there's another aspect here, which is I don't know if we spend enough energy and time building our support systems. And by support system, it's every institution, the most important one being the mother-in-law. I was very struck by the book I put together on women in power, which were basically CEOs. How many of them had actually relied not so much on their mothers, but on their mothers-in-law for leaving their children and taking care of their kids. And often, the mother-in-law actually living in with them because they were in the same home, and the advantages that that brought. So to actually have on-site, and some of the support systems were around those that had gone off to study, actually had like a Stanford professor babysit the kids, neighbors, friends, family. It's about support systems we create. And it's really important to be nice to everyone around us to make sure that we can have that support system working for us. So when you say no, you have to say it really nicely so that you don't create an enemy for life.
It is no, so it really trusted lieutenants, and I think it's like a mirroring of what you're creating at office is your trusted lieutenants, and
Correct.
relationships and connections you're really creating the same at home, trusted
Correct.
lieutenants and connections.
Correct. What is that team? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question here from Parth Karwat, who's saying how to deal with employees who have been with organizations since the start, are extremely experienced, but becoming complacent and inefficient and in the comfort zone since their position will remain due to long experience and loyalty. How does one deal with such employees? Anything on that?
But I think we have to look at why you feel there's a complacency coming in. If this question is to do with the current environment, it may not be complacency, it may just be older people have just found it harder to adjust to this new normal of working from home and technology. But if it is indeed because there is complacency settling in, then nothing like a change of role or and guidance on what is not working. So, it's really back to have that frank review. If you have a view that the person is not giving their all, then that conversation is important. The change of role can be one way, but also guidance and support in terms of what is required. And it could well be that the individual needs some upskilling as well to work in the new norm, technology being a classic input that is needed.
So, yes, upskilling and reskilling have been the buzzwords through this entire year when people have actually had all these, it's been a very, very uh, fire test for everyone. It's absolutely baptism by fire that we've all gone through.
Yeah. Ashu, there's a line I love to use, and it's a lovely Sanskrit line, Mahastavira Sangha Rakshita. And what that means is to know what we do not know is the start of knowledge. And I think for many of us, we don't realize how far we've gone on sort of old learning without relearning what is actually needed. So helping individuals and ourselves also, each for one of us, to recognize what we do not know is very, very important on this journey. And then what happens, unfortunately, is we wait for the organization to feed us that learning. So someone in an HR department develops fancy little e-learning things, and you have to tick the box that you've done those lessons, but those may not be the very learnings that are suited to you. They're sort of wide organizational learning packages. So to recognize what we need, and then maybe if one cannot do it for oneself, even asking the organization about how we they can support us and show us the way becomes a whole way to help us in our career planning. So helping the individual understand what they don't know and how you as an organization or leader can support them might be the answer as well.
So, yeah, I think before really what you're alluding to is maybe before making an assumption, step out and ask how. How can I really help you? And maybe there's an answer to that complacency there.
Yeah.
So, we've seen the most recent cricket match of India, the presumed underdog rising from the ashes to being the winning streak. Sports are one of the most parallels to leadership.
Yeah.
And you are passionate to leadership, sports, you are passionate about sports. How does it resonate for you with leadership?
Well, I think the example you raise is a classic point. Who would have thought that the rookie sort of B team can be the winner the way it is? So, there's clearly talent there. Congratulations to those that picked these individuals. Imagine the sense of self belief. And I'm sure every one of them was really nervous out there. But somewhere in that training, in the ability to work as a team, was a spirit. And I think that the core of it is also how we play to win. So I think what sports teaches us is brings out that competitive streak in a way that you are desirous of winning. And when you're in a game, no matter what, whether it's a racket game like badminton, which I've played, or a team game like basketball, uh, you are in there fighting to win. But the training must also be such that you will lose at times. And when
Yeah.
you lose, you do it with a sporting spirit. But for me, the biggest learning was the team games. I mean, when I played badminton and I played for the state of Himachal as well, it was a very much a one-on-one game. So that was really all about the competitiveness and the winning sort of streak of not giving up. And you play till that last
Yeah.
minute, yeah, even if you're losing. But in basketball as a team, the fact that you didn't have to be the one that shot that last goal, you could well be the one who made that pass which enabled that goal to be had. So being part of the team, feeding from behind, leading from behind as much as leading from the front are very important lessons that come from sports, to my mind.
Yeah, so it's learning, like you said, back to the element of experts and knowing who is better at what and leaning in on them as and when you need their support. Uh, there are how you mentioned this third ball, the bouncing ball, your music, your how do these shape you as a person, that you bring forward to all dimensions of your life, whether it's your social causes, your career, your family?
Yeah, well, I think at one level they're critical because they are your points of de-stressing. It's the fallback. I mean, music has this amazing ability to lift my spirits, right? I'm deep lover of Western classical music, Indian classical music, and actually music of almost pretty any sort. I'm amazed how much of the music my daughter listens to I love as well. But music to me, for me, is that it is that de-stressing, and therefore important to know that it's there for you. Uh, I think some of my interests, particularly in nature, bird watching, wildlife, safaris, is about de stressing. It's about being with the family, which fortunately we all enjoy these same interests, which is just fabulous. But equally, it's given me the sort of causes that I engage in now. So it comes with a passion and a love for the environment. And it's taken me and enabled me to have what was a hobby and a de stressing thing to what is quite central to some of the work I'm doing now in terms of water sanitation and the environment. And what I bring is my thought leadership, my ability to convene around some of these issues. And I do it in spaces which I firmly believe are so important for us as humanity and to me as an individual. So they, I think, become very important for us as we grow as individuals. I was also very struck in the book that I put together on women CEOs, how many of the women actually had a major cause as part of what they did, even while they led organizations. Sometimes it was just the huge engagement they had in the CSR agenda of the company they were running. And in some cases, it was causes that they supported outside. And it could be education, it could be a girl child, it could be health, it could be water, sanitation, whatever. But they all had something they stood for in which was connecting them back with humanity and with reality on the ground. And I think what it does is it enables us to give back
Yeah.
all that we have had given to us. And it keeps us in touch with reality. It is very gratifying. And it's amazing how little goes such a long way. It's the checks you write, of course, but it's also the time you give. That little bit of advice and consultation and support that you provide to that not for profit who doesn't have the ability to hire the right HR resource or a lawyer. And that free time you give them is so important for them. And it's so little of your time that you can give in every way your own time, your own energies, your money, and it goes such a long way.
Very, very true. Very well said. How it all just blends and marries and forms its own way towards giving back. I have, Naina, three questions which from the audience, and I'll start taking those now. I have a question from Nupur. What have been your biggest enablers for success?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think, if I look back at the very start, and I say this because, you, I don't know if you have kids or not, but I'm sure you will at time, is education is so critical as the first enabler. And education is important not just for what it teaches us, but the confidence it brings. That sense of self-empowerment that starts early in terms of that education. And the further, that deeper that education goes, the more empowered you feel. So I think that is such an important enabler. Uh, from that self confidence and self empowerment comes the next level. Because I thought about it, and I think what begins to happen is it sets you up for success. So it isn't just education, being in the right environment, having the right support systems. all of that being there for you sets you up for success. And then success begets success. So you have to get onto that cycle and treadmill where you're in your comfort zone, where you can succeed so that when you fail, it doesn't get you down. And that's the resilience point that then comes in. That as long as you're succeeding more than you're failing, you continue on a journey. And the resilience and agility you must have to pivot, to change, to fight back, to jump back into the fray is then the inner strengths that you have. I think to recognize early enough as an enabler, if you're not in the right ecosystem, and by ecosystem, I mean all of this support. If it's coming from or not coming from home, you have to do something about it. If it's not coming from your office, you need to do something about it. If you can't do something about it, then make a change so that you are at least in an ecosystem that helps you succeed more than fail. So you have to be able to recognize whether those enablers are working for you or not. But equip yourself well to start with and build the right team and have the right support systems and make sure you have the right partner, husband or wife, that isn't beefing and bitching when you're not home and supporting you through your work.
So, yeah, I guess it's about dealing with the sabotagers and moving away from them and really empowering yourself constantly, looking for ways to empower yourself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ashu, you have such a way with words. I love the way you summarize. Thank you.
Thank you. Comes with my years of professional experience, I guess. I have the next question from Danish is how can one deal with emotional turmoil which has been created due to job loss, a very prevalent scenario right now?
Yeah. You know, my heart goes out to anyone who is in that position. Uh, it is not easy to face it because it's not just the fact that you lost the job. It's, I'm sure, the internalizing and agonizing of what did I do wrong? Why was I dispensable? So what it does in terms of your, you know, your own spirit and courage is far more worrying than the job loss itself. Because finding another job, you will find another job. So the important thing is to not get down and out. This world, this environment, and in India, we haven't seen enough of this. In the Western world, people get turfed out of jobs at the drop of a hat. There's no shame in losing a job. There's absolutely no shame in losing a job in an environment where people are losing jobs because the economy and the environment has changed, where whole industries have shut down, restaurants, hotels, the aviation sector. So I think first and foremost, to not feel bad about it, to be able to just go out there and say, hey, you know, I lost my job. I'm looking around. I need help, support, and then begin that outreach in terms of finding that role. I think it's also a great time to reflect on were you really happy in that job? What was it that you liked? What didn't you? Is there an ideal job that you think would make you a better person or a happier person? And you'll be surprised how much you can do even without a formal job in terms of support out there to others who are working. And it may be in terms of just the social work you do. It's your little give back time while you get organized in terms of the rethinking. But the emotional turmoil is one which my heart goes out to. But, you know, nothing better than to talk about it and not feel you have to hide it and to reach out to people, and you'd be amazed how much support will be out there to help you find yourself. Sometimes you will look back in life and say, thank God it happened. And I say this because I know people who were in this same position, people who actually left my organizations and came back to say, I am so glad that I had a chance to reflect where I was going, because the change in direction has given me a whole new way of life where I'm far, far happier. So use it, you know, to use it as a time to reflect, and maybe you look back in life and don't see it as the big negative it appears to be today. I think God and life has so much set out for us to strengthen us. We will never know. We will never know why it is happening to us till we can look back many, many years later and see what it did to change us. I can tell you, I didn't lose a job, but I've certainly been in situations which I absolutely hated, as in a job I didn't, a role I wasn't enjoying at all. And I look back to say, thank God that I was there, because it made me reflect on why I was doing what I was doing when I wasn't enjoying it, and think about what I might really enjoy doing. And, you know, find that inner strength, whether again it goes back to music or art or something that you really enjoy, that hobby which becomes your strength.
So I am Naina, just to let you know, a classic case of someone who's reinvented herself completely from thanks to transitions of life and gone down this journey of self-discovery. And when I look back today, I would also say I'm really glad because I am a stronger, reinvented, completely new person thanks to that. So yeah, absolutely echo what you're saying. I'll move on to the next question. How does one decide from Parth Karwat again, how does one decide the ideal balance for utilization of wealth for social welfare versus improvement in personal lifestyle and luxury?
Yeah, it's such a personal question. I think you have to figure it out for yourself. Uh, Material things give you joy, then you have to, indulge yourself. If it makes you feel better, you don't feel guilty about it. Just leave a little bit there for others who may need it a little more than you. And on the other side, there's no end to what one can give and do. And it isn't only about money. As long as you're there thinking about how you can spend your time and do that little bit for someone else. And it can happen in little ways as well. It could be from somebody you employ and how you treat them. It's just respect for every human being. It's really for each of us to find that balance. And it comes in different stages. I mean, I was always interested in the CSR work my organizations did. I always had a lot of interest in what my husband was doing with the not for profit that he was working with. But the real give back time only really happened when I retired from the bank. So, your time can come. You don't have to try and do everything in one go.
Okay, I am really running short on time and Shreya, I have 4 questions here. How much can we extend? Shreya? Okay.
I leave it to Naina and you, depending on your schedules. If you can take, I also have two more questions which I was going to post on your window. So over to
Yeah,
you.
I have questions. So, Nana, can we take another?
Yes. Ashu, I'm in your hands. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So we have questions literally pouring in. I have one from Nitin Usher. How do we deal with senior members of team feeling out of place when the organization is on serious growth with demanding deliverables?
And that's a serious issue because you have to have alignment, and having the team with you is going to be very, very critical. So you'll have to do what it takes to bring them along with you. And equally, if there are those that don't get it and are not jumping onto the bandwagon with you and they're not part of that team or delivering, you'll have to effect change. So recognizing that you need the team all together, marching together to that tune. And by that, I don't mean it can't be a dictator's tune, right? I mean, it has to be a team. It has to be individuals contributing their views, their diverse opinions, all being recognized and being brought together. But then having everyone convene to the same sort of message, the same direction is going to be important. So that has to be fixed.
Thank you for that. I have a very interesting question, not someone who's anonymous, but someone who's asked. Your stories are really inspiring, Naina. In a country of 135 crore people and lakhs of organizations, why are there so few Naina Kidwais? What do we need to, what needs to be fixed to have those values and humanism that you speak about?
Uh, you know, I mean, you flatter me. I think my view is that there are many, many stories out there which we just don't get to hear about or tell. We certainly don't have people speaking up for themselves. So I think it's for us to discover them and tell them way, out there, because for everyone out there, there are others that are getting influenced to follow in those footsteps. And I can give you examples in sanitation, which are just so touching. Uh, in Orissa, the problem became that they couldn't find enough masons, or the male masons who were there were just not comfortable building the toilets. So I was just saying that it took this one woman. Oh, now I've gone on mute. Yeah. Can you see me?
No, your video's gone off, Naina.
Yeah. Something happened. Okay. Uh, Okay, so as it comes on, you can hear me there. So I was just going to say, so you get a woman like this. She then embarked on a program of training Rani Mistris. So
Okay.
just lakhs of women were trained to become masons to take the Swachh Bharat program forward in the state. So, not only was she the role model, but every Rani Mistri became a role model for another Rani Mistri. It was livelihood. They generated money for their families. It was one of the most successful programs there is.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these women deserves accolades. Organizations like SEVA, the Self-Employed Women's Association, which Ela Bhatt started, is full of stories of amazing women that have risen from very underprivileged spaces to actually be leaders in their village environments. So we don't have to look far if we do want to find these tales and stories. And for every one of these women, they have absolutely created just thousands others to follow in their footsteps. So
Well,
they're out there. They're out
yeah,
there
yeah,
for us.
yeah, thank you. And I think that's the kind of stories Arca Leadership is looking for and putting forward. I did meet Renana Jabawala, and she talked about how that organic empowerment for them has mushroomed in, or spiraled rather, into such a phenomenal societal change.
Yeah. And
Uh,
just it's an amazing story, actually.
yeah,
The Self-Employed Women's Association. What
correct.
economic benefit and empowerment, but helping women organize themselves in a way that they become the bread earners in the family, and how it helps. And they can't do it on their own because they're more likely to get beaten into submission. But the organizing that happens because they have come together as a community and they stand up for each other.
So it really comes back to there's always strength in unity.
Yeah.
And whether for a leader, whether for a community, society, family, it's all about being that unified whole, even at a personal human level. I
And in India, I mean, I just want to answer, we beat ourselves a lot on the state of women, and there's a hell of a long way for us to go on many fronts. But there are huge success stories sitting there with the self-help group movement, which is the microfinance movement that works through the self-help groups. And that, to my mind, is going to and is changing what is happening at grassroots India. The ability of women to borrow, their repayment records at 99%, and the desire of many of the NGOs and government to help them with that repayment through sustainable livelihoods.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I have another question again from Danish. How do you work with people who you don't like, but they do deliver results?
Yeah.
That's a
People
very
like me
common,
have
tricky one.
and believe me, when you are not boss of your own company, and I've always been a professional working for others, you often come into a role where your team already exists. You've just been plonked in on top of them. And you take a look around you, and yeah, there are people there who are very good, but they may not have the same value systems you have. And it's important to recognize what is working and what isn't. So I typically get, of course, influenced by the fact that the individual delivers, but would prefer not to take the nonsense that goes with it, because someone who delivers can sometimes have such a strong uh, feeling about themselves and ego that they ride roughshod over their team. And that is unacceptable behavior to my mind. So letting that person know very early what is not working in my mind, and that they better pull up their socks, because in fact it will get in the way of their own career going forward. You know, you can be a great person delivering on sales, but you're not going to become the next CEO or leader because nobody likes working for you. So that advice and input and confronting the individual with what isn't working is, I think, very important. It's not easy to do. It's much easier to do if you're the boss. If you're a colleague, it's not so easy to do.
Peer
But you have
leadership
to
is
find
always
ways.
hard.
But you
Peer
have to find
relationship,
ways.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And otherwise, you just stomach it and know that sooner or later, either you'll move or he or she'll move, right?
I often hear these stories as a coach about I don't get along, and I think you just have to find ways, as you said, either confront or find ways.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or ignore it if it
or-
isn't working. Yeah. But do that as the last step. I think the ignoring should only happen if the person doesn't take and on board the advice.
yeah, otherwise, hold the mirror and get on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question from Yogesh Jain. How can we know, inspire, and learn more about your transformational journey? So, Naina, there is obviously a hunger and thirst to know more about you.
Well, what can I say, Ashu? I mean, I have no idea how to answer this one except to say there is a little bit that has been written in some books. I can, you know, if you want to be in touch with Shreya or TOSB, we can send you some of this, including a Harvard Business School case. So some of it is there. It's seen through others' eyes. So you may find that informative. So very happy to get that over to you. And if you have questions, very happy to answer them directly as well.
One question from me, the real Naina Kidwai. Is there anything, what makes you, like it's a rapid fire, what makes you cry, if anything? I mean, we all have our emotions. What makes you cry?
You know, there's a lot that makes me cry. In fact, to the point that it's embarrassing at times, as to I can cry through a very stupid, usually Hindi movie, which you shouldn't be crying at all. But you know, it will. I think it's always about individual emotion, and it is seeing and feeling other people's pain, and sometimes also just the sheer frustration of knowing how easily things can get fixed, but are indeed not getting fixed. So lots of situations. I also cry from joy. I mean, I cry from good
Uh,
music and
you answered,
laughter.
you took my next
Yeah.
question away. What gives you joy? You're not supposed to go in rapid fire to the next one.
Yeah.
Anyway, what gives you joy?
Uh, I think it's about the love of people around me. Always the joy of giving to those that I work with, and I think family always, because they're there for me. I'm very fortunate to have just a lovely family which is there for me all the time. It's you know, it's so many things. It's bird watching, it's getting up in the morning and just feeling that fresh air, and seeing these new birds that have arrived announcing the start of spring or the start of winter, and just nature for its bounty and what it gives us.
So you really appreciate love, nature, life, and I think all of it as a package deal is what I am taking here today, fully, Naina. We are over the 1 hour, and unfortunately, I will have to come to the close of the session. If I had one word or one thought that you would like to leave us with before I say bye to you on this one?
Well, just live life to its fullest, as if there's no tomorrow. And I think if one can do that, you enjoy every moment for what it is. You don't spend all your time planning for your future or having your ambitions take over in a way that makes you unhappy, that you haven't got what you want. Just enjoy every moment for what it is, because you don't know when it gets taken away.
And this year has been really testimony of that for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, so on that beautiful note of live life to the fullest, I would like to close this session and say thank you very much, and making time for Leaders Connect, and for all of us who were here today to listen to your stories, your experiences, and words of wisdom that have come, with all the years that you've put into your life. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you, Ashu. We should all be reading your book, so make sure that you get that over to us.
Thank you very much. I will.
Your 4 books.
Thank you. I will.
Bye.
Thank you so much
Bye.
for that.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.